Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Eve Galanter, and I would like to introduce Mark Pocan, running for Congress in District 2. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Eve. Glad to be here.
As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have that prepares you for this office and why you are running for Congress.
Sure. Well, I've served 7 terms in Congress. Prior to that, 7 terms in the legislature, and then 5 years on the County Board of Supervisors, so local, state, and federal government. Ran a small business for 37 years. We sold that last year. So one less thing to kind of have in back of the mind, although I didn't run it day to day for the last 14 years, I guess. But this is something that I really enjoy serving in Congress. I try to do my best to represent the people of the 2nd District, South Central Wisconsin, in Washington, both in taking their values to Washington as well as trying to explain Washington back home, which sometimes is the much more difficult part given how Washington operates. I serve on the Appropriations Committee, so that's the committee that we spend money essentially for Congress, and on that a couple subcommittees that I drill down a little deeper on. And then recently I got an appointment to the Foreign Affairs Committee. So keeping busy with what I'm doing in Washington. And I would really love the opportunity to be able to serve the people of the 2nd District for another 2 years in Congress. If we get the majority, which we think there's a good chance, I should be in line to be a subcommittee chair on appropriations, which is a good thing. It gets you at the table where decisions are made. And, I certainly think where you put your dollars, your tax dollars, is where you put your values. And that's why I've always, whether it be in the legislature, been on the Joint Committee on Finance or appropriations now, it's the best way to really show the values of the people of South Central Wisconsin by doing that sort of work.
Well, what measures, if any, would you propose to ensure the fair and humane treatment of immigrants and refugees while maintaining our national security?
Yeah, so this is a complete mess in Washington right now. ICE is running like a rogue agency. President would like to consider it his personal police force, I think. In the first Trump presidency, I actually introduced the first bill ever to abolish ICE. And bluntly, it should be abolished. In fact, I never imagined how bad it could have got as it is right now. Watching them literally run roughshod over our constitutional rights as Americans, watching them not do what they said. They said they were going to go after people who had criminal backgrounds. I think 5% of people have violent criminal backgrounds, 73% nothing. Another 5% have like traffic violations and things like that. But when you break it all down, we're not going after the people that they say they're going after, and they're disrupting the communities in many ways. We need secure borders. I think everyone wants that. But I think when it comes to the enforcement, we need a different model, and ICE is certainly not the model right now. So I think that's one thing that I would certainly want to do, is have a different way of doing the enforcement. And not having it something that's so directly run by the president as opposed to Congress, where I think more of that directive should come from. Also, on funding, we just increased ICE funding, not me, but Congress, 7-fold. So what we've done during the process, because we had to onboard so many people, I have a podcast with Liberty and Justice for Some, and we had a whistleblower, a former ICE employee, who told us how he was a trainer there. 45% of the training they got rid of. Everything around your constitutional rights, they no longer teach people. In fact, they've told people to break into homes, which is against the law in how they're doing things. Again, that's part of why ICE needs to be substantially changed. I just recently went and visited the Dodge Correctional Facility, which is our facility where people in Wisconsin are housed, and talked to a couple constituents that were there. Again, people who have had good jobs here in Madison have been picked up for no criminal violations whatsoever. But what we're doing to people and disrupting lives and people in the community is a real problem.
Well, what, if anything, will you do to ensure that everyone has equal access to health care services, including reproductive health and abortion?
Sure, 30,000 foot. I support Medicare for all. We're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have universal health care. Watching what the Republicans just did with the Affordable Care Act, 4 million people lost access because they got rid of a lot of the subsidies. After November, another 7 million people will lose access to Medicaid. And that means 11 million people lose access to healthcare just to start. And then those people are still going to get sick. So insurance companies are starting to raise rates. I just sat down with some business leaders here in Madison. 3 different people told me they had over 30% increases to their group plans for healthcare. And that's all because of what the Republicans did in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill and how they've hurt people. So we've got to reverse all of that. But I think the gold standard should be Medicare for all. On reproductive health care, definitely, a woman has a right to make her own decisions, to be able to choose. And Roe versus Wade has been the law of the land, had been for a half a century. With it being overturned because of the Supreme Court, we need to codify it federally, and I am in full support of doing that. But even in Wisconsin, we went back to law taking us back to the mid-1800s. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. It's used as a political wedge, as an issue, rather than as healthcare, and we should recognize it as healthcare. And I think at least codifying Roe versus Wade and then recognizing the broader healthcare needs of everyone is the way to go forward.
Well, what policies, if any, would you support to promote a healthy economy and lower the cost of living for Wisconsinites?
Yeah, so people are paying more right now for groceries and everyday goods because of President Trump's erratic use of tariffs. Look, a targeted tariff can be useful. China's dumping cheap steel. You put tariffs on it and you protect our steel industry, the workers, the auto industry, and all the ripple effects. But when you just throw tariffs around like a monkey throws its dung at the zoo, you never know where it's going to land, but it's going to be messy to clean up. That's kind of the Trump policy of tariffs. It means we're paying more for groceries, coffee, bananas, anything that comes from overseas. We're paying more for everyday goods. Then we know because of the Big Beautiful Bill, we're paying more for healthcare, for what I just mentioned, also utilities, because they canceled a lot of the projects that we had in the Inflation Reduction Act. And then most recently, because of an illegal war in Iran, people are paying more for gasoline. And farmers are paying even more for diesel fuel, which they use. And jet fuel has gone up also more than regular gasoline. So right now, people are just paying out of pocket right and left. We need to reverse all of those things. But also, we need to address the minimum wage. We haven't changed the minimum wage, which is a little over $7 an hour for a long, long time. And if we do that, raise wages and lower costs, you're going to get people back to an equilibrium that works for the average family so that they can take a family vacation, have that little luxury of a camper, a snowmobile, a boat, whatever it might be. But we've got a number of things to do.
Well, do you think Congress should be doing more to respond to executive branch actions? And if so, what would you propose?
Yeah, so this is the most corrupt administration I can really think of. Maybe Nixon, I don't know. But it takes a while to go back to find someone else who's operated like this. Whether it be the vanity projects, the Arch, the ballroom, the passport, the wanting a $250 bill with your picture, go on and on and on. I recently went down to the reflecting pool where they've made a mess with the algae and everything else because they just gave a no-bid contract to a Trump donor. There's so many things wrong with this president. And right now, Congress won't do anything. We're supposed to be a co-equal branch according to the Constitution, and we act like a subservient branch because Speaker Mike Johnson is really, even Republicans refer to him as the deputy speaker, and Donald Trump's the speaker and the president. We'll fix that in November if we change the majority. We think we have a good chance to do that, and we can finally then do lawsuits on behalf of Congress against the administration, which would be a lot more weight. Right now, they're not happening under Mike Johnson. We have oversight in our committees and the power of the subpoena to make people have to come and answer. And there's other things that we have that we can, and absolutely no bill will go through because we'll be the goalie in place. So there's a lot that can happen if we flip the majority. That's what I'm looking forward to. And by the way, that subcommittee I mentioned on approach that if we get the majority, I'll likely be the chair of the Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee, although the name could change, that has oversight over the budget of the White House, the Office of Budget Management, and all the DOGE activities. So much of the corruption we've seen will fall in my committee's jurisdiction, and I'm not afraid to use a subpoena.
Well, what other priorities do you have that we may not have already addressed?
Honestly, I think people, rightfully so, their hair is on fire with this administration and this Congress not stepping up and doing anything under Mike Johnson. So, I think the biggest thing that people need to know is we're going to do the fight, and we're seeing it through lawsuits right now against Donald Trump. But if we get the majority, we certainly have much more ability to make Donald Trump the lamest of lame ducks that you could ever have. And that's part of my goal. But also just getting back to normal and then building on that for progress. But right now we are so deep in the hole. First thing is stop digging, and then we'll figure out how to get out of the hole. But the stop digging part means getting us back to any normalcy. And then after that, I want to make sure everyone has health care. There's big ideas we can do that are out there. I want to raise minimum wage. I want to make sure that people have a right to organize a union if they want to. I want to change a lot of the things that we can't do right now because of this president. And I think there's the tools and the will to get that done.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete our interview?
I would appreciate their support. I've really loved representing the people of South Central Wisconsin for the last 14 years. I'd like to be able to go there, especially in the majority, with some seniority that puts me in a place to maybe do a little more as a subcommittee chair on appropriations and try to get some of these things done. Again, where we put our dollars is where we show our values, and I think Democratic values need to shine right now, given what we've just been going through with the Trump administration. And just know that our offices are always available. As much as there is so much that is awful, and I will concur, it is awful in Washington right now, back home, we're still able to help people in many, many areas. So if you have a problem with the IRS, you have a problem with Social Security, with Veterans Affairs, whatever it might be, as you well know, those local offices are the folks that could still get something done. And maybe one of the few things that sometimes brings me joy, we're still able to get things done for people. So in the meantime, utilize us in every way you can. But I would love to have another 2 years to represent the people of the 2nd District.
Thank you. I want to thank Mark Pocan for speaking with us, and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that the primary election is Tuesday, August 11, and the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.